This story is a couple of days old, but I wanted to give my personal take on it. Eddie Hearn has reached out to David Haye with a view to making David Haye versus Tony Bellew sometime in 2017, probably the early part of 2017, at heavyweight. There had been previous talk some weeks ago, maybe even a couple of months ago, about Bellew wanting to fight David Haye at a catchweight, or maybe even cruiserweight rather than at heavyweight. But unless Bellew and Hearn are leaving something out here, they're now saying that they're willing to do the fight at heavyweight. I'll leave a link in the description below to the article where I got this information from on boxingscene.com so you can read it for yourselves. I think this is interesting. And obviously you've got Tony Bellew taking on BJ Flores, who is a pretty close personal friend of David Haye's. So we'll see how Bellew gets along in the Flores fight. Most people expect David Haye to be in attendance at that fight, possibly ringside, cheering BJ Flores on, giving him some pointers maybe about how to approach the fight from a tactical standpoint. So I don't know. It's interesting, I guess. Tony Bellew versus David Haye at heavyweight. Most people think Bellew would get blasted out. But one thing I know about Bellew is that he is very, very mentally tough. He's certainly not going to be intimidated or anything like that. And if David Haye can't get Tony Bellew out early, then I would give Bellew a decent chance. Because I've never been convinced by David Haye's stamina. When it goes late on into a fight, David Haye always struggles. And yes, I know he's been 12 rounds like against Vladimir Klitschko. And he went 12 rounds against Bellew. But in both instances, it was fought, those fights were fought at a snail's pace. Anybody can go 12 rounds if you're hardly throwing any punches. And that's what David Haye was doing, particularly in the Bellew fight. There was hardly any punches thrown. You could get a fat guy off the street, and if he only has to throw 4 or 5 punches a round, he'll go 12 rounds. But when David Haye actually has to throw punches, when he's really under pressure, and he has to fight somebody off, I'm not convinced. I've never been convinced by his stamina over a 12-round distance. And if Tony Bellew was able to weather the early storm, and that is a big if, because David Haye can seriously punch, particularly when he's facing somebody of a similar size to himself. The angles are much more favorable for him to be able to get off his big shots without having to overreach or punch upwards like he did with Klitschko and Bellew. It's much more favorable to him for him to fight somebody the same height as himself, somebody who he'll have a substantial reach advantage over as well. David Haye's got a longer wingspan than Tony Bellew, longer arms, and he's just more explosive overall. So I can understand most people would be picking David Haye, but if by some miracle Tony Bellew got out of the early rounds and managed to apply pressure, he has a chance late on in the fight, I think. So we'll see what happens anyway. David Haye has to get past whoever he's going to get past in December, and Bellew has to get past BJ Flores. And these two might get it on in the early part of 2017. What do you feel about this fight? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Do you think it's a mismatch? What do you think would happen? I mean, at the end of the day, it is a world champion fighting David Haye, albeit a cruiserweight world champion. So I don't know. Let me know how you feel in the comment section below. It's your boy Hatman. I'm out.